Welcome back to On the Fly. Today we'll be taking a look at the 2022-2023 playoffs, giving you my takes on who I think is going to win. So as always, be sure to let me know down below your thoughts, whether you think a team's going to win, lose, as well as who your thoughts on the Stanley Cup champion for this year is. Let me know your predictions down below in the comments, as well as join the league for the bracket challenge. Link will also be down below in the description. So with that being said, we'll hop right onto it today, taking a look at who's going to be playing in the first round. So we have the first round matchup in the East: Boston, Florida, Toronto, Tampa. In the Metro side, Carolina, New York, New Jersey Devils, and the New York Rangers. In the Pacific, you have Vegas and Winnipeg, Edmonton and LA. Central, you have Colorado and Seattle, and then Dallas and Minnesota. So with that being said, a very eclectic taste of teams, interesting sort of mix. You have some surprises, some pretty standard guesses for what I would have predicted at the start of the year. However, there's no bigger surprises where we'll start here with the Boston Bruins, obviously shattering this year's point record, wins record, probably one of the best teams we've ever seen put out on a performance. And if you would ask me at the start of the year, I would have told you that no, I don't expect Boston to win, even though I see these two teams. I didn't even think that they'd become close to making the playoffs. I had them as a second wild card team, and yet here they are, top of the Atlantic, shattering point records. So that being said, a really solid year. They got a lot better at the deadline, which will be a recurring theme you sort of see with some of these teams, especially in the East, who went out and pretty much made their mark at the trade deadline. So we'll see if that's going to help them as they move towards the Stanley Cup Finals. But with that being said here, we'll take a look right at the top with Boston and Florida. So in this matchup, I do expect Boston to win this matchup pretty handedly. I know Florida's a good team, but at the same time, you got to give the hot hand with Boston here. They've shown the entire year that they are a team not to be messed with. So I do expect Boston to take this one pretty handedly. So I'll pick them to move on to the second round. And now we'll take a look at the Toronto-Tampa matchup. This one I do expect to be a really, really good series. The one sort of thing I'll note here is when we look at the trade deadline, Toronto made a lot of moves. Meanwhile, Tampa made one singular move, picking up Tanner Jeannot. But unfortunately, Tanner Jeannot got hurt this past week with a high ankle sprain. So with that being said, he's not expected to be back for the first round, which I do expect to really, really hurt the Tampa Bay Lightning. And in my opinion, that's going to be the deciding factor here. I'm going to take the Toronto Maple Leafs to beat the Tampa Bay Lightning, finally breaking their playoff curse since 2004. And I think just for the storyline of it, it's probably been 7 games as well. Between Carolina and the New York Islanders, I'm going to take Carolina here. I just think the way these two teams match up, Carolina for me just makes more sense to win this matchup. They've been a lot hotter as of late. However, the Islanders still are a team not to be messed with. They've made their moves. They've got their guys. But at the same time, overall, I do expect Carolina to sort of take that matchup handedly, call it 5 games, which I'll sort of show here in a second. But at the same time, last matchup here, we picked a lot of favorites. It's time to pick the underdog. I'm going to take the New York Rangers here. And one of the main reasons for these Rangers is just sort of the way they're built. They made a lot of good moves at the deadline. I think they're a little bit better than the red-hot Devils right now. And I think the Devils are going to start to cool off, especially when we look at the playoffs. The Rangers are more sort of depth team. Meanwhile, the Devils, not so much. I do expect the Rangers here to take it in most likely 6 games. Leafs, I'm going to take in 7 just because I think it's the storyline ending for Leafs fans finally getting through to that second round, first time since 2004. As for the Boston Bruins series, I'm going to take them in 4 games. I think it's going to be a sweep. Just the way Boston's been playing as of late, I expect Boston to do pretty well. I'm going to give them 4 games. Carolina and New York, I will take Carolina in 6. The way the Islanders play is just sort of going to be taking and prolonging the series. I expect Carolina to win in 6 games. So with that being said, we'll move on along here to the Western Conference with the Colorado Avalanche and the Seattle Kraken. Now, this one is an interesting matchup here. I do expect Colorado to win. Obviously, you have an expansion team in Seattle, not necessarily the overwhelming favorites. So I do think Colorado, just with that experience, obviously they've won a cup, and I think sort of having that leadership core who's been there, who's done that, is going to help Colorado a lot more than, say, Seattle, who has sort of a variety of guys. Some have been there, some haven't. I think overall, just the way Colorado is built for the playoffs is going to help them a little bit more, and I think that's going to be the determiner factor in the series. The next one we'll take a look at is between Dallas and Minnesota. This one, once again, we're going to take the underdog here with Minnesota. Obviously, they're a really good team. Dallas has been riding a hot hand as of late. I just don't see them continuing that. I think Minnesota is going to be the team that's going to move through here. They made a few weird moves at the deadline, then they got their splash. So I think overall, I'm going to take Minnesota here over Dallas just by a slim margin. It's not going to be a blowout in any sense. The Western Conference is really, really tight. Same with the East. However, the East is a little bit more skilled than the West just in terms of where they're looking. So just moving along here to the Pacific, we have Vegas and Winnipeg. This one, I think, is going to be Vegas by a pretty good margin. Obviously, the Western Conference winners. So I do expect Vegas to do just fine against a team like Winnipeg. Obviously, Winnipeg has made some moves, solidified their top six. Be curious to see if that works at all in their favor. However, just in terms of skill level alone, I'm going to have to take Vegas in this one. Lastly, between Edmonton and LA. Now, this one is a really, really interesting matchup. Obviously, LA's made a few moves, picking up Gabriel and Korpisalo, whereas Edmonton, not really too many moves there. They made a few moves, just sort of trading away some guys, picking up some forwards. But overall, I'm very interested to see sort of where Edmonton goes here. I think I'm going to have to take Edmonton just by a slim margin once again. Edmonton I'll take in 7 games. Edmonton and LA, this is probably going to be the most competitive series we'll see. I think it's going to be a really, really good matchup, as well as the Toronto-Tampa. There's one to watch, Edmonton, LA, and then Toronto and Tampa in the East. Those 2 matchups I would highly suggest watching because those really could be anyone's matchup. Minnesota, I'll take in 6. I could make an argument for 7, however, I think Minnesota's going to take it in 6 there. Colorado in 5, just sort of how they're built, the leadership veteran core there. And once again, I'll take Vegas in 5 as well. Taking a look at these second round matchups now, and once again, we'll start back off in the East between the Boston Bruins and Toronto Maple Leafs. Yes, this is a historic rivalry we've seen 3 years in a row with 2013, then you have 2018, 2019. Well, it's not 3 in a row, but you get the point between Boston and Toronto. Now, this is going to be an interesting series here. Toronto coming off of the first round with the momentum on their side, first round win, first time since 2004. I would not be surprised here, and I'm going to take them. Can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm going to take Toronto over the Boston Bruins here, just for one simple reason: the momentum. When you're a team that rides off the crowd, I would highly recommend a pick of Toronto in this matchup, just because I said it before, I'll say it again. Once they win one series, they'll win it all. And for that reason, I'm going to take the Toronto Maple Leafs over the Boston Bruins in this series. Even though Boston's looked really good, just the way Toronto's built, they finally got their defense under control. Their goaltending still a question mark to be seen. However, I do expect Toronto to win this game, and most likely 7 games as well. Once again, adding to that storyline sort of season. So that storyline, once again, 7 games is what Toronto's always lost in. So with that being said, that's what I'm looking for out of the Toronto Maple Leafs over the Boston Bruins, unfortunately. With that being said, we'll move on to the other matchup here between Carolina and New York. And this is where I might lose some of you, because for me, I'm once again going to pick the New York Rangers to beat the Carolina Hurricanes. My opinion, the Rangers are the better team in the Metro this year. Just the way what they've done at the trade deadline, I do expect them to sort of thrive in this playoffs. Having players that have been there, that have done that. You added Tarasenko, Stanley Cup champion. You've added Kane, Stanley Cup champion. A lot of these players are going to help the Rangers big time, and I would not be surprised to see the Rangers make it a long way this year. But with that being said, that's our Eastern Conference conference finals, and move on to the West here between the Colorado Avalanche and the Minnesota Wild. And once again, I'm going to pull one out of the not expected category. I'm going to take the Minnesota Wild over the Colorado Avalanche. This is probably going to be my upset of this sort of thing. You could argue the Leafs over the Bruins is an upset just by the way Boston's played this year. However, I'm going to pull this one out of left field, and I'm going to say Minnesota in 5 games over the Colorado Avalanche. And then in the Pacific side, Vegas against Edmonton. I'm going to take the Vegas Golden Knights. Just need a number 1 seed somewhere there. And for me, I'm going to take them as my 1 seed in terms of the conference and the division rankings. So with that being said, that is my conference finals: Minnesota against Vegas, Toronto against New York. And as we see here, now this is where it starts to get a little bit more interesting between Toronto and New York. For me, I'm going to take the Toronto Maple Leafs. I think just the way their team's built, They have the star power. They have the momentum. I believe they're going to carry it through here against the New York Rangers. Really, really good team. However, I think just in terms of the skill level alone, plus sort of the outside factors, Leafs are riding a high. This is where the Leafs start to make their move. I'm going to take the Leafs in 5 games. Then we have the Minnesota Wild against the Vegas Golden Knights. This one, I'm going to take Vegas just because just sort of the way the teams match up against each other. I got to take Vegas in this matchup. But with that being said, there's your Stanley Cup final between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Vegas Golden Knights. And I sort of said it before, I still believe this, that once the Leafs win one playoff series, they'll win it all. I'm going to take the Leafs in 5 games. And in terms of total goals here, I'm not sure what I'm going to go because obviously you can say 3, 4, 5 goals in each game, but at the same time, the Leafs are a team that are going to score a lot of goals. Vegas is a team that's also going to score a lot of goals. So I'm curious to see how that's going to work out. I would say probably we're looking at about 7 goals a game between the two teams, and I'll say the Leafs are going to win in 5, 6 games. So we'll go with total goals at 42, and that is my Stanley Cup prediction. I'm going to take the Toronto Maple Leafs to win the 2022-2023 Stanley Cup. But as we said at the start of the video, be sure to let me know your thoughts down below if you agree or disagree with me. If you made this far in the video, thank you for watching. If you'd like to drop a like, if you really like to consider subscribing, tell all your friends in the comment down below your thoughts on the bracket. Until next time, see ya.